Imagine for a second that you're shuffling a deck of playing cards.
Okay.
Common sense tells you that the exact moment you stop shuffling and set that deck down, the order of those cards is completely fixed. Like, the top card is already the Queen of Hearts or whatever. You just don't know it yet.
Right. Classical physics. It is what it is.
Exactly. But what if the laws of quantum physics say that common sense is just entirely wrong? What if those cards are actually blank, just, floating in a mathematical cloud of infinite possibilities?
And they don't actually take on a physical identity until the precise microsecond you flip one over and look at it.
Yes. Welcome back to the deep dive. We are jumping right back into River's journey today. And, well, our mission for this deep dive is to unpack exactly what happens when you take a purely poetic, dreamlike definition of time and violently collide it with cold, hard quantum mechanics.
Massive collision, really.
Okay, let's unpack this. We already know River has a working definition of time from her encounters with the poet Elias. She's been using thought control, navigating those shimmering webs of consciousness, but today she is meeting a character known simply as the Gambler.
Which is such a critical transition. We're moving beyond the philosophical beauty of time and drilling down into the actual engine of the universe, specifically the intersection of human consciousness and quantum probability.
Right. But before we get to the cafe, we have to frame where River is mentally. She's in this agonizingly mundane limbo. Her college final exams are done, but she's trapped waiting for her friends, Henry and Max, to finish theirs.
So they can all go home.
Yeah. She's killing a 7-day stretch by illustrating for Christmas money, binge-watching Netflix, just totally frying her brain. But underneath all that mundane stuff, she is obsessively applying the poet's lessons.
She's essentially conducting, metaphysical fieldwork in her sleep. She's practicing the thought control Elias taught her, actively experimenting with those shimmering webs in her dreams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's even managing to briefly step into Henry and Max's consciousness.
Yeah.
Just testing the absolute limits of her own mental architecture.
Which makes the intrusion of everyday life so jarring. She's sitting in the boys' room, munching on cookies, while Henry studies and Max plays games. And then their friend Nigel walks in.
The numbers guy.
Exactly. Nigel has a knack for probability, and he's trying to rope the guys into an off-campus gambling scheme. Henry thinks it sounds like a fun mathematical challenge, but River is just spectacularly unimpressed. She rolls her eyes, hands over her cookies, and leaves to get bubble tea with Braden.
Who just views gambling as a hobby he wouldn't touch.
Right, but I have to stop here and challenge River's reaction. If you're so obsessed with the mechanics of the universe, with branching timelines and endless possibilities, why on earth are you so bored by your friends gambling? Isn't gambling literally the purest distillation of probability?
I mean, it seems like a contradiction, sure. But it actually highlights the massive scale of what she's trying to understand. Nigel's gambling is an entirely closed, deterministic system.
Oh, because he's counting cards.
Exactly. It's fixed odds. It's working within the rigid laws of classical physics. The outcome is already decided by the physical arrangement of the deck. The gambler's just trying to guess it based on past data.
I see.
River isn't interested in guessing a fixed outcome. She's trying to understand the fundamental architecture that creates the outcome in the first place.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. It's like if you had just watched a wizard perform genuine reality-bending magic, and then your buddy pulls out a cheap parlor trick where he guesses your card.
Right.
You'd just look at him and say, yeah, whatever, I'm going to go get bubble tea. The parlor trick is mathematically clever, but it's completely hollow compared to actual magic.
And that extreme boredom with the mundane world is exactly the catalyst she needs. The contrast between Nigel's parlor trick and the shimmering webs of consciousness really primes her mind.
It totally does. And that leap happens the moment she gets back to her room. She hears the guys still arguing about Nigel's scheme, so she sits down to draw a funny illustration of it just to vent her frustration.
But then she spots her mysterious book.
Yes, lying in the corner. She opens a table of contents, and a brand new chapter title literally shimmers at her like spun gold. The title is The Quantum Gambler.
The physical reaction she has is immediate. Reading those words acts like a tether. It pulls her consciousness right back through the web of time and space.
And she is instantly transported back to that mystical cafe. The sensory shift is incredibly vivid. She goes from a cramped college apartment to glittering snow falling under streetlights.
Is that beautiful pink moth by the light.
Yeah, and inside, the clock above the counter is chiming in this irregular, mischievous cadence. Elias the poet gives her a subtle nod, and then Mr. Cronos introduces her to Dev, the gambler.
Now, Dev is the complete antithesis of Nigel. He's sitting at the center of the cafe, shuffling a deck of cards with this mesmerizing, almost liquid fluidity.
And Mr. Cronos tells River that Dev has a very unique relationship with chance and with time.
Dev instantly spots her, calls her a scientist, and invites her to sit down for a game of possibilities. He claims this simple card game is going to demonstrate the quantum nature of reality.
Now, River pushes back immediately, and she brings up the exact argument I would make. She looks at the deck and argues for strict determinism. She essentially invokes Laplace's demon.
Right, the idea that if you know the exact starting position of every atom,
And the exact force of the shuffle, the final order of the cards, is a guaranteed mathematical certainty. It's just hidden information, not quantum physics.
she's arguing classical mechanics perfectly. In our everyday macroscopic world, a shuffled deck is a determined reality. But Dev calls this the illusion of determinism.
No, here we go.
He introduces her to the concept of quantum superposition. He spreads the cards face down and tells her that in this specific game, every single card exists in a superposition of all possible states.
Meaning until she actually flips a card over, it is simultaneously every card in the deck. Face up, face down, red, black, all at once.
Exactly.
But wait. I need to throw a massive red flag on Dev's explanation here. In real quantum mechanics, superposition applies to subatomic particles, like electrons.
Sure.
When you try to scale quantum rules up to macro objects like a physical playing card, physicists usually lose their minds because of decoherence. The environment forces the card into a single state long before a human ever looks at it. So is Dev just using this as a really heavy-handed metaphor, or is he literally claiming the cards are in superposition?
What's fascinating here is that he's proposing it entirely, literally, within the framework of this cafe's reality.
What? Really?
Yeah. Dev is intentionally bypassing decoherence to make a sweeping philosophical claim. He's scaling up the observer effect. He's suggesting that human consciousness is the ultimate mechanism of wave function collapse. It's the missing link in the universe's architecture.
So the bridge between the quantum realm of infinite possibilities and the fixed reality we experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so she picks a card. The Queen of Hearts. And Dev casually flips the Ace of Spades. And he explains that the act of her observing that card, her conscious intention colliding with the physical world, forces the universe to collapse all that infinite potential into one single reality.
And in doing so, he points out, she creates a branch. Every choice, every observation locks in one path while permanently discarding countless other potential timelines. He asks her, doesn't that make you the architect of your own timeline?
The architect of your own timeline that completely redefines the human experience. You aren't just a passenger strapped into a seat. You are actively laying down the track just by looking out the window.
It places a staggering amount of power into the act of perception. Dev openly admits his experiments wouldn't pass peer review, but he's pushing River to see that the lines separating chance, human choice, and time are infinitely thinner than we believe.
So River plays a few rounds with him, and you can imagine her brain is absolutely melting. Later that night, she's sitting alone at a table, running her hands over the leather cover of her book.
Trying to synthesize the poet and the gambler.
Right, and this leads to my absolute favorite conceptual breakthrough. Mr. Cronos approaches her table.
With a bribe.
Yes. He sets the very last slice of pie down in front of her, puts his hands on his hips, and refuses to let her eat it unless she tells him what she's thinking.
It's such a great grounding moment.
It really is. He pulls out a pack of cigarettes and lights up. River judges him for it just a little bit, but says she doesn't mind the smoke. And then, to earn that slice of pie, she unloads this brilliant theory she and her boyfriend had been developing.
She takes the physics of black holes and applies them directly to human neuroscience.
Yes. She explains that in astrophysics, massive objects like stars or black holes physically warp space-time around them. That curvature is gravity. But then she asks, what if the subjective time inside our minds is governed by the exact same principle?
She defines this as cognitive mass.
Or emotional mass, yeah. She connects this back to the poet Elias. Time dilates. It slows to a crawl when you are terrified and evaporates when you are joyful.
And River argues this isn't just a quirky illusion.
No. She proposes that in a high-stakes situation, like a car crash, your brain suddenly takes on a massive information load. Your amygdala fires, you're processing sensory details, pulling up memories, running micro-predictions to survive.
So following her physics analogy, more physical mass equals a deeper curvature of space-time. In her theory, A heavier cognitive load literally stretches and curves the subjective experience of time.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about the device you're using right now. Think of your brain as a computer processor.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. If you just have a basic blank text document open, the computer runs flawlessly. Time flies. But if you suddenly open a massive 3D video rendering program, the entire system lags. The internal fans start
I
screaming.
mean, the whole thing slows down.
Exactly. That heavy software is the cognitive mass of a traumatic or hyper-focused moment. Your brain is processing so much data per millisecond that your internal clock literally lags.
It is a stunning synthesis of disciplines. Mr. Cronos distills it perfectly. He says, so emotional mass is really cognitive mass, a concentration of information shaping our experience of time.
By reframing emotion as dense clusters of data, she turns a subjective feeling into a tangible, mechanical function.
And Mr. Cronos is so floored by this, he literally stops halfway through smoking, swipes the last bite of her pie right off her plate,
It's just so funny.
and tells her she urgently needs to find the physicist to help her refine this.
But before she can even ask who the physicist is, the entire cafe forcefully dissolves around her.
Snapping her violently back to her mundane reality, back at her desk in her bedroom.
And she looks down at the paper. She hasn't been drawing a funny illustration about Nigel's gambling scheme at all. Her hand has been sketching Dev at the center of the cafe, holding the quantum deck of cards.
You really have to imagine the crushing weight of everything she is holding in her mind right now. Information theory, the architecture of consciousness, quantum collapse, cognitive mass.
It's completely overwhelming her psychological bandwidth. She's sitting there, totally isolated, when suddenly she hears the distinct sound of clothes hangers scraping across a metal rod.
In her closet.
Yeah. She looks over, totally spooked. The clothes are swaying. And then a polished wooden cane pokes out. A man steps directly out of her closet.
It's Rubin.
Rubin! Stepping into a messy college apartment in full 1600s attire, a high-collared coat with silver clasps. And River isn't terrified, she is overjoyed. She jumps up and hugs him,
She even playfully points out that people call him a boogeyman.
which they just laugh off as a ridiculous misunderstanding.
His arrival provides this huge momentary release valve for her. She finally has someone physical, standing right there, who actually understands the multidimensional reality she's navigating.
She wants to show him off to Henry and Max so badly to prove she isn't losing her mind. But he gently tells her he can't stay.
He doesn't leave her empty-handed, though.
No. He reaches into his heavy coat and pulls out a gift. A small, spiral-bound notebook titled Eternal Now, Diaries of a Philosopher. He tells her she needs to read it before returning to the cafe, promises he'll see her soon, and vanishes.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this transition into Chapter 4 does a phenomenal job highlighting the psychological toll of deep learning.
How so?
Well, Rubin's appearance is deeply validating, but it doesn't cure the underlying problem. The profound nature of this knowledge is leaving her fundamentally isolated.
Yeah, the days following his visit are incredibly rough. She's utterly drained. Her friends try so hard to pull her out of it. Henry takes her for walks in the snow, brings her snacks, literally dances around the living room to make her smile.
They constantly invite her to play video games.
But none of these mundane distractions can bridge the gap.
It's a recognized phenomenon for anyone undergoing a massive paradigm shift. Acquiring deep structural knowledge about the world could be incredibly alienating. You look around and people are stressing about exams or arguing over a card game.
While you're grappling with the realization that human consciousness is the architectural force of the universe.
And that every emotion is warping space-time. It creates an unbridgeable conversational gap.
She really tries to explain it to Henry and Max, but they are drowning in their finals. They don't have the bandwidth for quantum superposition. So, devastated and lonely, she retreats to her journals, just hoping the hangers might rattle again.
Suspended between two incompatible worlds. The deterministic reality of her friends and the infinite reality in her mind.
So let's pull all of this together. We started with River utilizing a poet's framework learning that thoughts can be controlled. Then we slammed that into Dev's quantum table, learning the universe is a cloud of infinite potential that only collapses when a conscious mind observes it.
And the crowning achievement is her synthesis of those two ideas into her theory of cognitive mass. The realization that intense emotional states act like physical gravity, filling our brains with so much dense information that they literally warp our subjective experience of time.
Culminating in Rubin handing her the philosopher's diary. So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? Well, if these frameworks are accurate, You are not just a piece of driftwood floating down a predetermined river. You are the architect.
Exactly.
Every choice you make forces the quantum universe to collapse its infinite possibilities into your fixed reality, and every moment of deep focus physically bends your subjective universe.
It strips away the excuse of passive existence. It places a tremendous amount of power and responsibility on the simple act of paying attention.
It really does,
Mm.
which leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling thought to mull over. If human consciousness actively collapses possibility into reality, and the weight of your attention stretches your perception of time, what exactly happens to the completely unobserved moments of your life?
Oh, wow.
If you wake up and go through an entire Tuesday purely on autopilot, completely numb, doom scrolling, without applying any focus whatsoever, did that time actually exist for you at all? Or was it just another card left permanently face down on the table?